Hey there, everybody. My name is Sage Popham, and I want to say thank you for joining me here in this week's episode of our channel. And I just want to thank you for taking the time out of your day to watch the content here that we're sharing at the School of Evolutionary Herbalism. Really means a lot to me. I know there's so much out there in the world, and everyone's so busy these days that if you're watching this video or hearing my voice, I just want to say thank you. I really, really appreciate it. And the content for discussion this week is looking at some logistical dynamics of what it means to be a practicing herbalist, right? Specifically around the consultation and working with clients. I think there's a lot to be learned here in terms of what it looks like to be a practicing herbalist, what it looks like to work with other people. All the herbalism stuff aside, but just like the logistics of, how do you do your scheduling and when do you do a follow-up? How do you do a follow-up? How do you reassess the person? What are some of the things that you need to do to adjust your formulas or adjust your protocols? What do some of those logistical things look like? So that's what I'm sharing with you in this week's episode because, we got a really great question in one of our student Q&A sessions this week about it. And I just thought this was such a great question and really great content that I wanted to share it with the greater community because these are things that I find aren't discussed that often, right? I've got a lot of herb books, and they don't always really dig into the process of consulting with people and how to do great intakes and interviews and what are their steps for deciphering like what's going on with this person and how do you translate that into appropriate remedy selection and formulation and protocol creation and then how do you do all of that and then work with that person on a continual basis, right? To really follow their case, see how it changes, see how things need to be adjusted and altered and the focus changed and all of these kinds of dynamics. It's like there's so much there. And I feel like these are things that aren't always, discussed or written about in very many herbal resources out there. So I feel like it's really important information. This is something that I really wish someone had kind of sat me down and explained before I started practicing and seeing clients. Because, when I first started seeing clients, it was just kind of like, I just winged it, obviously I did my best and I had a lot of competence and understood how to practice herbal medicine, but there were a lot of details there that hadn't been explained that I just kind of had to make mistakes, learn as I go, and figure some things out as I went along. And so hopefully what I share with you here in this video makes you not have to make the same mistakes that I made and just helps support you in moving further down your plant path and being of service to your community with the power of herbal medicine. So thanks so much for joining me in this video. Enjoy the content. If you do enjoy it, if you don't mind doing me a favor and just hit that thumbs up button, like, subscribe, all that good stuff. It really does help support the channel and my ability to be able to continue to offer free content to you on a consistent basis. So thank you for that and enjoy this discussion on some logistical dynamics of an herbal practice. Okay, question number 3 from Cecilia Harriet. Cecilia is asking, just wondering about the general logistics of your consultations. You meet a client for the first time for a couple of hours, then take the information back home to review, and then question mark. How do you get the formula to the client? Do you do a follow-up session? How long after? Yeah, really great questions here, Cecilia. Very important questions. And I don't think there necessarily is one right answer to these questions. I think most practitioners kind of find their own way to navigate this territory. They find a way that works well for them. Different practitioners just have different approaches to these things. So, I've seen some herbalists that are, especially more experienced ones, usually by the end of their consultation, have a pretty good idea as to what the remedy or the formula will be. And so oftentimes after the consultation is done, they'll take 5-10 minutes or so, separate from the client to just think it through, get the formula written out, compound it, and send them away with the formula right there on the spot. Obviously, I think that is super ideal and preferable, just because they're getting their remedies immediately. Now, obviously, for folks that are a little newer to practicing and working with clients, that more often than not is not super feasible, simply because a lot of times a newer practitioner maybe needs to take a little bit of time, consult some reference materials, do a little research, just have a little bit of headspace, right, to think through, okay, what's my approach here? What's my strategy? What's my protocol? What do I want to give to help this person? So usually the way this works for me, and I think probably the way this works for most people now, especially as we're in the middle of the epidemic and things like that, a lot of practitioners are doing distance sessions with people through Zoom or Skype or whatever, not seeing people in person. So in that way, it gives you usually a little bit more flexibility and time to kind of work through your formulas and things like that. So oftentimes the way this looks for me personally is, initial consultation usually is, depending on the situation, I would say between 1 to 2 hours. Usually 2 hours if it's depending on, it really depends on how many complaints they have, right? So for like a super acute situation, like, hey, I've got this thing that's happening right now that I need help with right now, those can sometimes be as short as 30 minutes, especially if it's simple. But if someone's coming and they've got a list of, 5 or 6 primary complaints, those can sometimes take a bit longer. And it usually, sometimes for really complex things, usually we got to trim things down and be like, okay, what are the main 3 things that you want to work on right now? And then we can get to some of the other ones as things start to clear up. Because you don't want to try to hit too many things all at once. It overwhelms the practitioner, it can overwhelm the client, it can just in general overwhelm everyone. And sometimes things are very interconnected too, and you can address 3 or 4 of those things, have a singular root cause that if you hit that, it will clear many things up all at once. So, meet with them for the first time, few hours, do the intake. After the session is done, typically like myself personally, I'll usually take a little break, take a minute to kind of think about the situation, kind of walk away from it, let everything kind of sink in. Usually throughout the session, certain remedies will pop up for me of like, oh, okay, they just mentioned something that is like a very specific indication for a particular herb. Sometimes the intuition comes online and it's like an herb is just like me, like this person needs me. And sometimes that intellectually maybe doesn't make sense, and then later on can be, rationalized and understood through the mind as to why that plant is very applicable to that person. And then oftentimes I will kind of take some post-case notes. So what that usually looks like for me is writing, listing out, okay, what are the main organ systems that I need my formula to attend to? What are the main actions that I want my formula to have? And what is the net energetic effect that I want this formula to have? Meaning, does it need to be warming or cooling or moistening or drying, or does it need to be tonifying or relaxing? That's really key. That's kind of my main guiding force there for how to think through the remedies that I'm going to select. So with that list, then I start hitting my herbs of like, okay, these ones are going to be the most applicable here. And I just start thinking through assembling my formula. Once that's done, sometimes that takes, in the beginning, that would maybe take me an hour, it'd take me some time, be a little slow. For the most part these days, this process takes me 10 or 15 minutes. if it's a really complicated case, maybe a little longer, but usually it doesn't take me super long these days. It'll take a little longer when I pull up their chart. So oftentimes I will utilize someone's natal chart also just as another way to assess what's going on. And to clarify anything, if I'm feeling a little confused, I'll go to the chart and say, okay, what's going on here, and use that as another tool of assessment. With that, I'll usually go into my dispensary and compound their formula. Usually in the session, I will get, their address and things like that. And I'll usually say, hey, okay, I'm going to put some herbs together for you. I'm not totally sure what that's going to look like. I'll put the herbs together for you. And once that's done, I'll send you an invoice for your session and for your remedies and things like that. And so I usually like to tell them that up front, this is the cost of the session, right? This is my price for for custom formulas and things like that. Because just to be upfront, so people are like, whoa, I didn't realize that was going to be that much or whatever. I think it's really good to just be upfront and clear from the get-go with people. Then I will put the formulas together and pack it and ship it. Usually try to send things out priority as best as possible. It's usually a couple bucks more to ship that way, but especially for super acute situations. Now, if something's really, really acute, and if someone's really far away and I want them to have their herbs now, usually I'll engage in a conversation with them of hey, do you have a local herb shop? Do you have a local apothecary or dispensary or a place where if I was to give you, a formula recommendation, you could take it in there and they could combine these herbs to make your tea, or they've got a bulk tincture dispensary and they could combine all their tinctures together to make a custom formula for you. So sometimes I'll do that with folks. If I really want them, it's I need them to get on this herb now. Or see if there's a co-op nearby where they could just go buy the single herbs. So that's usually an option too. And sometimes if that's the case, I'll even let people shoot me a text of hey, here's the ones they have, here's the ones they don't have. Which one should I do? So sometimes I'll actually talk to people on the phone while they're at the co-op or whatever. Okay, I'm limited in terms of what I can get. What's going to work here. So, so how to get the formula to the client, that's usually how it happens. These days I ship formulas to people because I don't see too many people in person anymore. Primarily because I don't have I'm not currently renting a clinic space in town. I also live out in the mountains and most people probably wouldn't want to drive all the way out to see me. Plus most of the people I see are far away from where I live anyways. So usually the formulas are shipped. Do I do a follow-up session and how long after? Yes. So follow-up session dynamics are super, super important. I think making sure that you schedule follow-up sessions is really, really important to do at the end of your session, right? So I think this is a big mistake a lot of beginning herbalists make is, they do the consult, they get the client the herbs, and then they say, get in touch with me whenever you want to talk again. Don't do that. That's a really easy way to never hear from someone ever again. People get busy, people forget, people just get lazy, or they don't want to deal with it, or they just end up with some sort of an excuse, right? So I think a really good habit to get in is at the end of your session, schedule the next one. And how long that should be, it really just depends on this person and the situation. For something really acute, you might want to have a quick check-in in a few days. For something that's not as acute, maybe you want them to be on your formula for a couple weeks before you get a check-in. Again, I think it really depends on the situation and just follow your gut really in terms of how long you'd like them to take your herbs before you can reassess how they're responding to the herbs that you give them. But the follow-up's really important. Because this is how you learn, right? Like from your educational perspective, this is how you learn is, someone comes to you asking for help, you give them remedies, and then you have an opportunity to see how the remedies worked, right? If you don't schedule a follow-up and you never see that person again, you'll never know if they helped or not, and then you're not going to learn. So just, from a selfish perspective, right? For your education, schedule the follow-up because it's really important for you to learn. Obviously, the more important part of this is you want to make sure this person's getting well. You want to make sure your herbs are working. If they're not working or they're possibly aggravating, you really need to know that because you want this person to be helped, right? So usually the way a follow-up session would work is, you're just reassessing their primary complaint. So whatever they came to you for in the initial session, you want to reassess those same problems. And especially the main thing is like the severity and the timing of them. So you want to assess, okay, in the first time we talked, you were getting, for example, headaches, every other day, and those headaches were like a level 8 in terms of severity. Okay, in a follow-up, it's like, okay, where are you at with your headaches? Oh, I would say they're at like a level 8. Okay, well, which at the start it's like, shit, well, they were at a level 8 last time. That's not really working. Oh, well, and then you assess timing. Well, how often are you getting headaches? Well, I've only had one headache in the last week. Well, that's improvement, right? If they were having every other day and now they just had one in a week, even though it was still a level 8, it's less frequent. So severity and frequency, I think, are two really important follow-up or just questions to ask in general, but you really need to make sure you ask them during a follow-up because sometimes people will forget the severity of their symptom from previously and they'll be like, your herbs weren't working. But when you reassess severity, you're like, oh, actually last time you were at an 8 and maybe now you're at a 5. And they're like, oh, well, I guess it is a little bit better, right? So it's really important sometimes so you can just mirror back to your client the fact that they actually are improving. Because let's face it, how did you feel 2 weeks ago? It's hard to remember, right? A lot happens in 2 weeks. It's hard to say whether we've improved or not. Sometimes it's really clear, but sometimes it's really not. So it's really, really important to reassess the severity and the frequency or the timing of things to be able to determine whether your herbs are working. Now, keep in mind that your herbs won't work every single time. Okay, this is just a harsh truth that we have to swallow as herbalists. It's that bitter medicine that we got to take, that we're not going to be spot on every single time in our remedies, right? You might overlook something. You might misjudge the energetics or their constitution or their tissue state. You might select a wrong remedy. That might lead to no improvement. That might lead to maybe a less improvement than you would want, but a little bit. It might, as every herbalist fears, it might aggravate things a little bit. It's okay, right? Obviously, we don't want to aggravate someone's symptoms, but it does happen from time to time. And don't beat yourself up about it. I think it's really important that we accept the fact that we're going to make mistakes, that we're human, that we're learning, that we're practicing herbalists, right? And that every client is a chapter in your experiential book of learning herbal medicine that can't be replaced by any level of instruction or book reading or conference going or workshop attending, right? That your clients are your best teachers. And the way in which a person responds to the remedies that you give them is actually a part of your assessment. So based on that follow-up session, however they responded to the remedies that you gave them, that's a part of your assessment of their condition. So if they improved, that firmly validifies your theory, your approach, your strategy to what's going on. If they didn't respond as well, then it's time to refine, right? It's okay, maybe they weren't as hot as I thought they were. Maybe we need to switch some remedies around. Okay, maybe we need to add in this herbal action or tone down that herbal action and give them a new formula, see how they go. Okay, now in a follow-up, we're seeing some improvement. Oh, okay, now we know what direction we need to go. So it's just very mutable. We have to be very flexible and changeable. As herbalists, we have to be able to follow the vital force within a person, which is constantly changing. And I think this is what really makes a good herbalist is their ability to not be too attached to their theories of what's going on, but to really be able to look at the person in front of you and see how they're feeling and what's going on for them, how their vital force is flowing, and to be able to follow that with the remedies that we give. So those are just a few logistical factors that I would share with you, Cecilia, about just some logistics of doing consultations, some big picture stuff, some detailed stuff, and hopefully that helps you in your journey of helping clients with herbs.